breakthrough seasons, premium players, top defenders and fresh faces to the Premier League. We're going to be predicting some of these player prices ahead of the launch of the 25-26 FPL game. So let's waste no time and jump straight into this price prediction video. It feels like it's been ages since my last FPL video, but we're here for the start of pre-season with the game launching in the next couple of days, we think. So what better time to predict some of the player prices? Of course, with massive amounts of pre-season content coming your way from myself, go ahead and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. And of course, feel free to like today's video. We're going to get straight into today's video though with players who have had massive seasons last season. Of course, I'm going to kind of separate some of the premium players to have a discussion with them in the next section. So you obviously not going to be seeing players like Salah, who clearly had the best season last season. We're looking at some of the players who aren't quite premium at that price point of sort of 9.59 million upwards. We're looking first off at Bryan Mbeumo of Brentford. Now, we don't know whether or not this guy's going to be moving to Manchester United or not. Manchester United are having a good old time being absolutely fleeced for all of their money possible. Brentford just keep saying no, which I really admire from Brentford. This guy's going to be a massive loss for them, and regardless whether he stays at Brentford or goes to another club, 8.5 million, an increase of 1 million to his price tag, seems completely just with how good this guy is within FPL. Another player who had an amazing season in Chris Wood for Nottingham Forest, of course battling for European positions for the majority of the season, and it seems that they're going to get Europa League and Palace are going to miss out, but we'll talk about that at a different time. I think his price going to 7.5 million makes sense to me. Of course, played a massive role for Forest, and he is their forward man. Taiwo Awoniyi is just nowhere near the team, and has only really just came back into the team at the end of the season, so I don't expect him to feature very much like he did last season. So 7.5 million for Chris Wood. Jarrod Bowen at 7.5 million start price from last season. An increase of 0.5 seems fine for Jarrod Bowen. Of course, West Ham weren't really the best team last season, and I think under Graham Potter it's going to maybe take a while, and maybe this pre-season for them to completely gel and sort of push forward as a team together. Of course, at the end of last season I picked Jarrod Bowen as a differential player, and he did absolutely fantastic, so there's maybe a little bit of bias here, but I do think he deserves a small increase to 8 million in FPL. Wissa is the next player we're going to talk about, who started at 6 million. I think he started at 6 million, the super low price point, because at the time of the start of last season, we didn't know where Ivan Toney was going, and now obviously we know he is in Saudi. I still think that Brentford, deserve this price point for Johan Wissa. 8 million. He's been absolutely unbelievable for them. He is their front man, and it seems like he's going to remain their front man unless someone crazy makes a bid for him in the Premier League. You're looking at Spurs, Newcastle and Manchester United, who have been interested in Johan Wissa this window, but for now he's a Brentford player, and 8 million is the price tag I think he deserves in this FPL season. Kluivert and Semenyo tying together here at 5.5 start price last season, both going to 6.5. You may argue, Kluivert has penalties, maybe he deserves to go to 7. I just think at that price point, there's pros and cons to both of these players, which of course we all probably know from last season. But 6.5 I think suits them well as Bournemouth assets, who did really well actually last season, and I owned both of them at different points. They both did fantastic for me, and 6.5 is more than fair in my opinion. Morgan Rogers, he just plays every single minute for Villa. He's so good on the ball. 7 million is his predicted price for this season for me, and I think it's completely worth it in my opinion. Aston Villa had good fixtures in the next season, and there's a good block of them. Chances are Rodgers is going to be in my team. Jacob Murphy, on the other hand, is a player that started at 5.5, lost a bit of value, and then absolutely exploded last season, and lots of people benefited from him being a huge differential in their squad. Sadly, I missed out with having other Newcastle assets, but I think with Alanga joining Newcastle, he's going to be a sort of bench asset, and it's 6.5 million. I think it's a fair price. I don't think he's going to start over Elanga at all, really, within the Premier League. We'll have to see how Newcastle do it. But yeah, those are the players who had massive seasons last season. Let's move on to the next section of the video. Apologies if I'm a bit rusty with YouTube and kind of getting my point across. It's been a while, but we're moving on to some of the premium players we seen last season. Haaland and Salah are the main talking points here, and I don't think there's going to be too much movement on Haaland's part. Yes, he had somewhat of a disappointing season. He still scored 22 goals. He's still Erling Haaland. I think a decrease in 1 million or perhaps 1.5 million, you could argue, is probably how FPL are going to do it. Maybe I don't agree with this. Maybe I look at Haaland and expect him to be sort of 13 million, 12.5 million and kind of swapping places with Salah. But this is what I suspect that FPL will do, and my prediction of their sort of view on Erling Haaland. When it comes to Mohamed Salah, a lot of people are going to put that 15 million price tag on him, which I definitely think he deserves. However, I don't think FPL will do this. I think FPL will go ahead and put 14.5 million as a price tag on Mohamed Salah. Palmer and Bukayo Saka, I think, stay pretty neutral with their price and don't change coming up to this season. Palmer had a little bit of a tail off towards the end of last season. Saka kind of in and out with injury and wasn't too impressive when he was back, but sort of kind of still did a job. I think they earned the right to keep their price point. I don't see a massive increase in performance. I don't see a massive decrease in performance either. I think it pretty much just deserves to be at that point. Foden, on the other hand, fell off the face of the earth last season, was really disappointing for Manchester City. So I think a drop in 1 million for Phil Foden, especially with the arrival of others within the Manchester City squad who could potentially take Foden's position and minutes off him. So I think FPL will most likely price him at 8.5 to 9 million. That's my assumption for this season. Watkins, I think, deserves a small increase of 0.5 million. It seems he's staying loyal to Aston Villa, and with pretty much no competition in the squad, he's going to get a lot of minutes, and I think being that main man for Aston Villa kind of solidifies him at that price point of 9 to 9.5 million. Heung-min Son, Kudus seems to be going to Spurs. If not, it's already complete, and I think it is already complete. I've seen videos of him and Mickey van der Ven doing TikTok dances. What am I on about? So yeah, I think Son's price is going to drop to around 8.5 million. Of course, he was at 10 million. I don't think it's going to be too much of a drastic drop all the way down to sort of 7, but 8.5 kind of sits right. He's still a really good player, but is kind of coming to the end of his career at Spurs. Maybe he moves in this window, we're still not quite sure, but I think that price tag suits him quite well. Isak at 8.5 million at the start of last season, easily a £10 million asset in FPL. No one's going to have an issue with paying £10 million for Isak, especially if he goes to Liverpool. Now, if you've kind of caught up with that transfer saga, you'll understand why I'm saying this, and perhaps at the time you're watching this video, maybe some more news has came out, but it seems that Ekitike, who Newcastle want, is also been targeted by Liverpool, and Liverpool have approached Newcastle and saying, well, we want Isak, is he available or is he not? Because if he's not, we're taking Ekitike off sort of you guys. So who knows what's going to happen with this transfer saga. I think that Isak will most likely stay at Newcastle and Ekitike will end up going to Liverpool or someone else as a forward, and Newcastle end up getting Ekitike. But yeah, for the premium players, this is the prices I predict for the 25-26 season. Let's move on now to the defenders. We're starting things off with Virgil van Dijk and Gvardiol. I think they remain at their current price point of 6 million, which they started last season with. The argument kind of is that we'll start with Van Dijk. With Van Dijk's perspective, because there are slightly two differences with the players, and I'll kind of tell you why. So Van Dijk, there's not really massive amounts of danger for him other than corners. That's pretty much it for Virgil van Dijk. You know, he's not an attacking fullback. He's kind of just a nice and easy pick where you get clean sheets pretty much quite a lot of the time, actually, from Liverpool. They're very good at keeping clean sheet, especially with their absolutely stacked defence. It's probably only going to get better this season. But But putting that aside, I think 6 million is probably the right price for Virgil van Dijk. He doesn't need more than that. He doesn't need less than that. I think he's priced perfectly already. I wouldn't really change much there. Guardiola, again, 6 million. It's a similar position to Virgil van Dijk. We expected Guardiola to be that left-sided sort of inverted left back, coming into midfield, really pushing up quite high, which we've seen at points last season, to be fair. But Man City have signed Aït-Nouri. I don't really see Guardiola then taking Aït-Nouri's position, and Aït-Nouri goes plays left wing. Who knows what Pep could do? Pep's an absolute madman. He comes up with the most crazy tactics that just work all the time. But I think 6 million suits Guardiola, same as Van Dijk. No change needed there. Milenkovic, 5.5, a 1 million increase. Of course, Forest losing Elanga, that might affect them within overall results in the Premier League, but defensively they should remain quite strong. So 5.5 is a fair price for Milenkovic for me. We're looking at Munoz, a 0.5 increase from last season. He's really attacking. He's a really great FPL asset. You could argue he should be around 6 million. And for me, I just don't think FPL are going to look at a Crystal Palace asset and go, you know what? Yeah, 6 million. I think they'll only increase them ever so slightly in terms of the FPL pricing. He probably deserves that 6 million price tag. He's super attacking. He's so great as an FPL asset, but 5.5 for me will be his price next season. Saliba and Gabriel, both 6 million. I do think FPL could try something here, and it will annoy a lot of FPL managers. If they put Gabriel at 0.5 more than Saliba, everyone's going to pick Saliba, and you know what's going to happen. Gabriel's just going to go score more points, and everyone will be saying, oh, it was never worth taking sort of that minus 0.5 just to go with Saliba. I can't believe I've done that. Keep them at the same price, please. I don't want that headache, and no one else wants that headache either. 6 million, keep it easy, please, FPL. The only Arsenal defender I actually think will be sort of, who is in the starting lineup, who will be slightly cheaper than this, is Lewis Skelly, who will kind of share that 5.5 million price tag that I've got on my next player in Cucurella. Cucurella is an unbelievable footballer. People hate on him a massive amount, and maybe he deserves it because he is a bit of a ratty player, but 5.5 million for a really good Chelsea defender seems like a perfect price to pay for Marc Cucurella. We've included Lewis Hall on this list because out of all of the Newcastle defenders, he was arguably the best when he was fit and playing, and I think he deserves the 5 million price tag, or 5.5 you could argue, if he's ready and fit for the season. Yeah, he was a fantastic asset at the time he was fit in the Premier League. So maybe we see him have a resurgence and have a similar sort of output he did last season for Newcastle. So 5 million, I think, could be his price tag, alongside some other Newcastle assets like Dan Burn. Could share that similar price tag of 5 to 5.5 million. But yeah, that's the defenders. Let's move on now to the new transfers to the Premier League. This is probably the section of the video you're looking forward to most, and of course I will just remind you, pre-season content is coming at you fast from myself in the next coming weeks of FPL, so make sure you're subscribed to the channel. So we're going to get straight into things with the fresh faces here. You'll see that some of the players on this list have 0.0 as their starting price from last season. That's because they weren't in the Premier League. Players like Wirtz, Gyökeres, Frimpong and Barry, who Everton have just signed the other day, so there's no kind of reference for their price, but I think the prices I've came up with are quite fair within FPL. So let's talk about them. We've got Florian Wirtz there at 9 million priced. I think that's quite a fair price point. We know he's going to be a huge part of that Liverpool system. It screams sort of 9.95. I don't think it's going to be any less than that. If it is, I think the pricing's going to be quite bad. I think 9 to 9.5 is fair, and people will pay that price. If it's more, if it's less, you know, we're going to have problems within the game, and the ecosystem in terms of the pricing will be off. When it comes to Gyökeres, of course, I've not got here we go, but he only wants to join Arsenal. It's going to happen. It has to happen. And yeah, I just can't see a world where this transfer doesn't happen. And you may be looking at 11 million price tag and going, what on earth? What are you even thinking? When Haaland went to Manchester City, he was 11.5. You know, the stats that Haaland had at the time were unbelievable. Gyökeres is coming to the Premier League with amazing stats. 11 million playing for arguably the team that's going to be most likely second all season. Who knows? But that's sort of the kind of stereotype of Arsenal at the moment. They're always second. This player could be the player that puts them into first. And he's fantastic. 11 million, I think, is completely fair. A lot of people will look at that price tag and definitely not pay it, which is completely understandable. But there will be a chance within sort of the 25-26 season where Gyökeres is definitely the player to be buying. And I think 11 million is the price tag I'm going to predict for him for Arsenal. Looking at Frimpong and Gyökeres as sort of a duo signed both by Liverpool in this transfer window, I think they'll both be priced at 5.5. We've seen Gyökeres in the Premier League, unbelievable. We've seen Frimpong in the Bundesliga, really good, but does he deserve a 6 million price tag just yet? I don't think so. There's no way he can come straight to the Premier League and instantly hit the ground sort of running as a £6 million player. I think he needs to kind of prove himself in terms of FPL to then maybe the season after be highly priced as that sort of Trent replacement. He can't come in straight away at sort of a really premium price point. I don't think it makes sense in FPL terms. So yeah, 5.5 for both of those transfers. We're looking at Kudus with a 0.5 increase from last season, of course, moving to Spurs. Looks to be that new left winger for Spurs. I think 7 million is more than fine to be paying for Mohamed Kudus for Spurs. Langer, we've seen him transfer to Newcastle. 5.5 starting last season. 6.5 feels like a fair enough price point. Actually, maybe it's too cheap. Now, on second thought, maybe another 0.5 could be added to this price and maybe similar price to Kudus, but 6.5 with the options that Newcastle have in terms of wingers, a lot of options that are quality. You've got Gordon, you've got Barnes, you've got Jacob Murphy. Now we have a Langer. Maybe with the amount of players there, 6.5 is actually the right call, but I wouldn't, blink twice at 7 million. When we're looking at João Pedro next, in the bottom left there, sign of Chelsea, unbelievable in the Club World Cup final. 5.5 he started for at Brighton. Of course, had some issues at Brighton, in and out the team. He is the ultimate FPL troll, you could argue. At 7 million, maybe a position change coming to João Pedro in FPL for the coming season. He did play up front in the Club World Cup final, so maybe that pushes FPL to put him as a forward. But yeah, 7 million feels fine. 7.5 you could argue as well. Barry for Everton, sort of a new Everton striker. Calvert-Lewin leaving the FPL scene, it seems. Look, love him or hate him, Calvert-Lewin's had a massive part in FPL history, but Barry taking over his role. I think 5 million for a newly sort of young signing makes sense. 5.5 because he's sort of going to be playing quite a lot, it seems, for Everton. But yeah, 5 million seems fine. There is Ain't Nori, who I've missed off this list, who I spoke about previously in the video. I think 5.5 to 6 as his price tag. Matching players like Gyökeres and Frimpong makes sense to me as a transfer. But those are the fresh faces to the Premier League who could really make an impact from day one in the season. I always say a massive thank you to you guys for supporting the FPL Mogs YouTube channel, and of course, if you did enjoy today's video, make sure you drop a like, and if you aren't yet subscribed to the channel, go ahead and do so for all of the FPL content coming to you guys for pre-season. But that is everything for today's video. Thank you again so much for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye for now.